My name is Derrick Weyrauch. I'm the president and CEO of Palladium One mining. We're an exploration and development stage company focused on sulfide nickel copper as well as PGs. Our focus is both in Finland as well as Canada.
Good to see you. I'm in your backyard, obviously, so welcome to me. I think this thing is. We're at this conference, the Mining Investment Event of the North, rammed out there. Investors are interested. Having any good meetings?
Yeah, we're having some very good meetings. Yeah, it's a lot of activity, but the markets are quite soft, so that's a bit of a problem that we're all facing, and we're just going to have to live through it.
Well, I think that's true. I think that we talked about this, but I think in terms of disconnect between equity prices and obviously what metal prices are doing, and more importantly, this massive EV infrastructure, which seems the train has left the station for sure. Mm-hmm. You've got green projects. Mm-hmm. People are knocking at the door, trying to work out how you're playing it, how you're timing, and so forth. So why don't we start with North American assets update?
Sure. Well, just step back for a second. So part of our corporate strategy has been to acquire assets that we think are in excellent jurisdictions that are large scale and can attract larger companies. And we've assembled a portfolio of those for this energy transition that's going on. So with regards to an update on Ontario, we've had lots of interest in that project, given we've had 3 discoveries over the last 2 years on a large project, extremely high grade actually, a nickel copper, 30,000 hectare package. That in part with the other properties that we have led Glencore to come in and take a 9.99% interest in the company. So I think we're having a really good time, except for the equity price in the market.
Well, and Glencore topped up recently as well.
They topped up as well. Yeah. We also did a small acquisition earlier this year, picked up 3 more critical mineral projects in Ontario, and a little bit of a royalty portfolio, early stage.
Yeah. Well, let's talk about the way you play this market, because I'm interested. Like you said, when the equities are not doing too much, it's kind of a case of why do I bother, kind of in the back of your mind. But you've got to continue to advance projects. You've got to continue to need to add value to the company, etc. Mm-hmm. I was talking to a CEO of a lithium company earlier this morning. They've ripped through the market, like $3 to $17 in less than 12 months by finding high grade lithium. Mm-hmm. And that's not a backdrop where lithium prices fell off the side of a cliff from last October-ish to just a few weeks ago, from 80 to 20, that sort of range. And she was saying, well, I said, what did you get right? What did you do during that period? Is it just a drill bit? And I think she honestly answered, yeah, but 80% of it is just a drill bit. But there's a kind of bit of a momentum play to all of this as well. You've got to get people excited, industry excited, like Glencore's of this world, excited about what the potential is. So sure. How do you see you being able to kind of engender that kind of interest, that kind of momentum? Is it going to take a market turn? Is it going to take a price change? Is it what's the thing that's going to trigger it?
Well, just like those people you were talking to, I think 80% of it comes from the drill pit, right? A good project will go in any market. I don't think there's any doubt about that, but you got to be able to position yourself for that good drill result. So we're working towards doing that. So we've got a $5 million budget at Taiko this year, but it's an earlier stage project. It's an area of the province that hasn't even been mapped by the Ontario Geological Survey. So we're actually doing the basic work. So while we've had discovery success based on some of the geophysics we've done and follow-up drilling, frankly, we don't have the property mapped. So we're doing the basic prospecting and ground truthing of the geophysical results. Right. So we've got boots on the ground, doing soil sampling, doing mapping, and bringing in some more geophysics in targeted areas to perhaps look at greater depth than we were looking at previously.
Right, and in terms of the technology, I mean, again, this is for all types of listeners to this show. So in terms of experience, in terms of being able to kind of create targets, the process you're going through is essential. It's basically the cornerstone of what you need to do before you can start layering that. With $5 million, what do you think you can achieve? What do you think the market's going to react to? What do you think it should be reacting to?
Well, on a pro forma basis, we actually started the year with 18.3. We have $5 million allocated, just flow through funding for the Taiko project. So we can achieve quite a bit of that, given the data set that we already have. Okay. And what we're trying to do is prove up the geological theory that we have, that there's been these swarms of feeder dikes, if you will, or conoliths, if you're talking about the nickel world language, that fed a large intrusion that sits on the property. So, that intrusion of mafic, ultramafic rocks came from somewhere. Where did it come from? These feeder systems, which, the unsophisticated way of saying is maybe the garden hoses had the magma flow.
Yeah.
So we're chasing the theory that these exist and that we've identified them, but now we have to prove it. So we're going to be proving it first off by doing soil sampling. Is there anomalous values of nickel, copper, cobalt in the soil? If so, it improves the likelihood that there's something beneath that area.
So how does that work? So we soil samples from what depth? How much? What does it need? What are the signatures that suggest what may be below?
So first off, the theory that we're testing is based on using magnetic sensors, or, if you will, or magnetic readings, and looking for the highs, which indicate sulfide content. We've learned that on this property, the glacial action from many, many years ago hasn't transported the soils very far. So where we find anomalous values of nickel and copper tends to have mineralization immediately below. So it's a matter of going into what they call the B horizon of soil. So you're digging down a couple of feet and getting some soil, testing it to see what is in it. And so far this summer, I think we're probably pushing over 2,000 samples already.
Right. Okay. And just coming back to the show, if I may, for a second, a lot of government here, a lot of government, not just Canadian, US as well. Critical minerals, it just seems to be on everyone's lips. They're talking about it. They're trying to work out who's fundamentally got something, not coming here, which, show and tell, promotional type stories. Who's real, who's not. I mean, what are your sort of takeaways from either the conversations that you're listening to on stage or conversations that you're having at the moment in terms of that imperative around some of the metals that you've got?
Well, everybody, I think, accepts that the energy transition is happening.
Yeah.
So we're all trying to position ourselves to be a provider in that transition. But the conversation is about, there's a lack of supply. So while the demand is understood to be there, governments are certainly behind the transition. Where's the metal coming from to allow that to happen? And certain metals have a fundamental demand structure that is quite robust. Copper, cobalt, for various reasons. So the conversation is about bring security of supply to the North American supply chain of these metals, which currently doesn't exist because there's so much coming from overseas.
So, but how do you then say, right, okay, we're trying to work out where we fit into all of this, right? We're trying to insert ourselves into conversations, make sure we're on the relevant lists that people know we exist. But you've also then got to advance the projects because you've got a chunk of money available to you across the entire company. With Taiko, you've allocated a budget. What's that money going to allow you to do in terms of continuing to be part of that conversation? Because that conversation is it's grants, it's it's tax incentives, it's debt providers eventually when you need it. It's all sorts of capital being made available, not just to the IRA, but provincial, state, and otherwise. So,
but that capital is available to more advanced projects where you write a resource, you possibly have a development scenario. So if you're at a PEA stage, better yet a PFS stage, or even better if you're at
for sure
stage, it's going to open up.
Do you not see that kind of going back upstream a bit? Because another big conversation out of going on at the moment is you've got big companies here who are looking to kind of backfill their resource and reserves because they're running out of this stuff. There's not too many advanced stories in there. So it just feels like this kind of trickle down will start to happen across all metals at the moment. I mean, do you think that's true?
I don't know about all metals, but I think all the critical metals.
Right, okay.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And again, the government support is largely for more advanced projects, right?
Okay.
Whether it's Department of Energy or Department of Defense in the States. How can we get security of supply for metal X, Y, or Z domestically for the gear plants that we are building? We're a much earlier stage in the process. In Ontario or Canada generally, we don't even have a resource at this point in time. So we're very much on the exploration side with a higher risk profile.
Yeah.
I think what we're seeing, though, is not governments wanting necessarily support, but the industry players, larger companies saying, well, we've got to get access to metal down the road where our prospective properties that have a good chance of discovering adequate resources. And I think a large part of that is why Glencore took an interest in us.
Right, and you're seeing, again, we're seeing quite a few of those conversations going on, talk about where there's a lot of JV action. There's that M&A conversations happening, but there's a lot of JV action, strategic investment, just people like Glencore taking a position, just biding their time to see what you can do with your plan and to deliver it. So there's some optionality for them in that regard. But at the point you prove up whatever it is that you think you need to prove up for a Glencore, for example, do you feel that they will continue to follow their position? Do you feel that they might want to step up? How do you encourage them to open up the checkbook?
Discovery, obviously, in defining something that's big is going to get the checkbook opened a lot quicker. Obviously, right now they're supporting us. We work collaboratively with regards to exploration as well. But obviously, if they're a big company with a big balance sheet, and we do find somebody or something of note, they're obviously going to be well positioned to take out the company.
Okay, so strategic partners, not yet. Obviously, government, not yet, but I guess I'm intrigued in how you kind of piece the puzzle together. It's kind of an organic jigsaw puzzle that you've got to piece together to get to a point where you've got the option of encouraging a partner or bringing in another partner to help with a kind of balance sheet issue. Because it all comes back to, with the share price, how do you not destroy the share price by equity raises? It's inevitable as an explorer, but how do you minimize the effect of that? Creative alternative financing
sooner rather than later. That's the only way to do it, right? And you be very prudent with how you spend the money. You use a risk-based approach to try and de-risk every drill hole as much as possible, so you get the biggest bang for the buck. But we do have a great strategic partner in Glencore right now that came in, and we're very happy with that.
Okay, I don't want to overegg that bit of the story. It's just I'm fascinated by the strategies that I've heard this past few days. People have been like changing strategy because it wasn't working. It's worked. Or changing strategy because they've run out of ideas, or getting JV partners in, or alternative financing. It's such a strange market for the last 2 years in terms of that disconnect between equities, which can be a reliever of so much pain because it's access to cheaper capital, or just sort of growth, etc., which is gets people's eyes looking in. So I'm fascinated. On to other projects. So where are we with everything else? What's
the KLS project? We just it's in the Yukon. Another nickel project, historical resource there. It's sitting in a footwall of the deposit for the geologists. It's completely unexplained. It's untested anomalies that need to be tested. We're happy to have received permits a couple weeks ago. So we're planning an exploration season right now, and hopefully we'll be able to drill that this year, but it is a little bit late in the season, so we'll see about
what's that in dollar or meter terms? Have you actually come up with a drill plan yet, or is that
it's in the works, but at the end of the day, unless you can get it executed before the end of September and access to drills.
Okay. And bouncing over to Europe.
We continue to go slow on that project. We put out a very robust resource, advanced metallurgical work, but the LK project, which is dominated by palladium, then copper, then nickel, it's just not the right project for bulk tonnage in this market. The adjoining property, the KS project, which is a very different geological model, much more akin to what we have in Canada score in Taiko. We'll be doing some geophysics on that early next year in advance of hopefully a drill program.
Okay, so moving things along, got cash, spending money prudently in this market.
Absolutely.
That can't do better than that. Thank you very much. Okay, cheers. Thank you.